keep up to date with our latest videos, please hit the subscribe button below. Hello, welcome to this video on Poisson distribution. I'm going to be showing you how you can use our data in sync with Poisson to predict the outcome of events. So the video itself is not going to go too in depth with regard to the calculation method. We're going to show you how you can use our data and how you can calculate this using Excel. We're not going to give you a background on the actual distribution itself, just to summarize that it's a way of calculating the probability of an event happening. So we're going to use the English League One for the current season for our example data. So I'm going to export that to Excel live from the Football Bet Data website. And here we have the output in Excel. And what we're going to do is remove any of the games that have not yet been played from the bottom. So I'm going to take these ones out, and you can see there that the games from last night have been populated. I'm just going to cut those ones out of the data set as well. So what we're going to do is simulate the predictions for these games after the event. So we know that they've happened. So we're going to simulate before they happened what the outcome would predict, and then we can see how accurate they were on that small sample. So I'm just going to pop those in a separate sheet. So this video is going to go fairly in depth with regard to Excel formula and calculation and pivot table methods. So you may need to grab yourself a cup of coffee and maybe some aspirin and watch this video a couple of times. But we're going to show you how you can use our data set to automate this. And it's really worth watching. It will prove quite useful, and you can use it across any league or any season if you like. The method is all the same. So we start with the data set. As I said here, we've got the current season for League One, and because we're nearing the end of the season, it is statistically relevant. I would say if the season was at the stage where home team hadn't played 6 or more home games and the away team hadn't played 6 or more away games, it wouldn't be as relevant, and you're probably better off looking at the previous season's data at that point, or waiting until each team had completed at least 6 games at home and away. But as I said, we're now at the stage where most teams have played at least 15 home and away games, so we have enough data there to make it significant. So just to the side of the data set, and this is where we'll be working, we're going to start here by working out the amount of home goals that the team scored in this particular game. So a bit of formula. So HD, home goal, AG, away goal. And this is the formula that we use. So we use left, which looks at the result, which is E2. And then we want the 2 characters to the left. And then what we do to convert it to a number is we times it by 1. You could put +0, but that turns that field into a numeric field rather than a text field. That gets the home goal. To get the away goal, we do right. Then we look at the same cell, and we want the 2 characters to the right, and again multiply it by 1, which gets you the score. And then we can highlight those 2, click the crosshair there, and that will drop all the way down. So that will get you the score for the home and away team in each one of those games. Okay, so that is step 1 done. What we want to do now is add a pivot table to work out the average home goals and away goals that each team has scored. So we're going to go to Insert Pivot Table from the top, and we're going to select the full data area here. Now, depending what version of Excel you're running will determine what your format of your pivot table is. Let me just, so we're going to look at the data list, show field list. Seems to have some contamination from the website there, just the image, but we've got it. So we've got the, we want the home team, and then we can scroll down to home goals, and we want to change that to average, and then we want the away goals, and we want to change that to average. And we can round these off as well, so we can change the format to 2 decimal places. Same here, so we right click, number format, number, and 2 decimal places, just tidies it up a bit. So that then gives our list of home teams and gives the average number of home goals they score per home game and the average number of goals they concede, so the average number of goals the away team concede. And then we want to do the same again, but for the away teams. So we can do this by selecting this pivot table. So we can select entire pivot table and copy. And then we're just going to paste this in here. And we just need to amend the field list to make sure that this is now away team. And we're just going to swap those around. Okay. So that is showing Accrington the average away goals they score and the average of the home team. So that's how many they concede. So that's step 2 now done. We're now going to work out the average for each team in terms of strength per league. So we're going to look at the home attacking average, the home defensive average. And what we can do here is we look at Accrington, which is cell X2, and then we divide it by the average of the league, which is cell X27. And we can freeze that cell by using the $, and we can drag that down. So you can see there that Accrington perform at 0.97. I'm just going to round that up. And that's their strength. So you can see the stronger teams have the higher number. Okay. And then we're going to do the same for the away. So the goals that they concede. Let me just make sure that that is on Y. And we can drop that all the way down as well. And then we want to do the same here for the teams playing away from home. And then AD. Drop that all the way down, and that populates. Okay, I'm just going to drag that one down to the bottom. So those should equate to 1. So we've done a division of the team's average goals against how the league performs on average. And that is step 3. Okay, here's how and when it starts getting a bit more interesting, because we can start putting some relevance to these numbers. And we're going to grab these games from last night and pop them into the right hand side of this spreadsheet, and I'm just going to pop them in. Yeah, just adjust these rows so they're not so wide, and there we go. So we've got the games that we know the results for, but we're deeming them as upcoming. So I'm going to delete all that data out, and we're just going to keep the average home odds, the average draw odds, and the average away odds in there. Okay. And what we're going to ultimately end up doing is predicting the home odds, predicting the draw odds, and predicting the away odds to what the fair odds for this game should be. Okay. And this is how we're going to do it. So this is where it gets a bit more in depth in terms of Poisson and the calculation. But luckily, Excel does this for us. So we don't need to put in too much of the manual detail. So I'm just going to show you in the next step how we get the Poisson calculation. The first bit we need to do is grab each team's attacking strength and defending strength from here, and we can do that with formula. You can input this manually, but it just takes more time, especially if you're going to be replicating this time and time again. So we're looking at the home attacking strength, the away defensive strength, the away attacking strength, against the home defensive strength. And we can do this a number of ways, but we're going to use, let's use SUMIF. So we're going to look at the range being the home team, the criteria being the home team playing, and the sum range is the home attacking strength. And that will populate for Wimbledon in there. And then we want to look at the away defensive strength. So the away team is Burton, so we're looking at the away teams here. And then we're looking at the away team in this game, which is Burton, and the sum range is the away defensive. I'm just going to change those headers actually, just not to confuse myself. So that is the away attacking, and that is the away defensive. Okay, so we now have those two populated. We need to add in the away attacking, so that basically is forming the strength of Wimbledon. So that's their attacking strength at home and against Burton's defensive strength away. And then we're going to do the opposite for Burton. So again, SUMIF, and actually what I'm going to do is show you a different way you can do it. So you can use VLOOKUP as well. As with Excel, there's quite often more than one way to skin a cat. So we're going to look at Burton, and we're looking at the away team, and we're looking at the fourth column. So you can see here this little bubble that's popped up, which changes as I drag. The 4C is the fourth column, and that's what we're looking for. So you can go this far and then specify column 4. And we want to put false in there because that means we want an exact match by putting false. And we can do the same again for Wimbledon's defensive strength. So we're looking at the home team and their defensive strength. Sorry, I've cocked that up, but there we go. So we look up value, even as professionals get it wrong. And then we're looking at the home table, 5th column, and false. We therefore have the makeup now of the match. We can drag that down and populate the same for each team. We don't have to enter that formula again, we can just copy that. Now to work out the total home strength, I'm going to show you the formula here and the away strength. So to do so, we enter sum, and we want to times this by the average of the league, which is this. That gets us the home team strength, and then we do the same for the away team. This times this times multiply that by this, and you can see that these two are the inverse of each other, which is what you would expect. Okay, that gets us the game state, okay, in statistical numeric form, and we can drag that down again. So that's the next step complete, and now we are going to start moving into the Poisson calculation. What we're going to do is number the number of expected goals across the top, and we're only going to go up to 5. It's very unusual that we get games with more than 5 goals per one team. It does happen, of course, and there will be a small percentage allowance for that in here, but for the purpose of the video we're just going to use 5, and we're going to do it twice, once for home, once for away. Now the formula that we need in here, as I said, can be calculated manually, but luckily within Excel there is a Poisson distribution function which automatically does this for us, and this is how we do it. As you can see, start typing and it already comes up, Poisson distribution, and click the function button, and this shows you what we need to populate in here in the series of events. So what the X is asking is the likelihood of the goal being the goals score being 0 for the home team, and the mean being the home team strength, and putting these dollar signs in to freeze it, and here we want this to be false. And we turn that into a percentage. So what that is saying is that there is a 25.58% chance that AFC Wimbledon will score 0. Now, if we drag that down, you'll see the same for all of these home teams playing today. That is the percentage chance of them scoring 0. We drag this across, that gives us the percentage chance of each of these teams scoring the goals in the respective headers there. Okay, so 1% chance that Wimbledon will score 5 goals. If you sum this, you'll see down the bottom there, 99.72%. So 0.28% is not covered with these 0 to 5 goal range. As I said, very insignificant amount. And then we do the same for the away team. So again, it's the Poisson Distribution. And we're looking at them scoring 0, sorry. Let's open this up so you can see what I'm doing. And then the away team strength, frozen and false. Convert to a percentage. So you can see that Burton have a 15.07% chance of scoring no goals against Wimbledon. And we drag it down and all the way across. Just going to take these lines out to make this a bit neater, easier on the eye. There we go. Okay, so what we've done now is generate the likelihood of each team scoring between 0 and 5 goals in the game. Now here comes the messy bit where we need to add in quite a few columns where we want to generate the potential score combinations for all of the outcomes, so the permutations of the game being 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, etc. So I'm going to type these in, and what I'll do is pause the video and resume when they're all typed. Okay, you can see I've now populated across the top all the combinations of score lines where the home and away team will score up to 5 goals. Got those across the top. Okay, the next bit, we're just going to index these rows here. You'll see why in a moment. So we're just going to sequentially pop those down there from 1 through to 13. And now what we're going to do is calculate the percentage likelihood of the score line. So we've done the percentage likelihood of a team scoring 0 or 1 up through to 5, but now what we're going to do is calculate the exact percentage likelihood of the game finishing 1-0. And this is how we can do it. So we're going to use another formula called HLOOKUP. Okay, that's a horizontal lookup, and this is how we're going to do it. So the value we're looking up, so we want to see what the likelihood of the home team scoring 1. So we're going to use the left formula again on the header cell, and I'm going to freeze the row, and we want to look at 1. So we only want 1 character, and we're going to times that by 1. So we're looking for a value of 1, which is the home team scoring 1, and we want to get that from this cell range here. And again, we're going to freeze that. And then the row number is what I've just indexed here. So this is row 2, and we can have that in there frozen, so it will adapt as we pull the data down dynamically. And we want to do a false in there. And that's pulled through, as you can see, 34.88%. Okay, so we've just replicated that. But then what we need to do is factor in the likelihood of Burton scoring none, 0. So again, we do a HLOOKUP, and the value we're looking up now is 0 for the away team. So we do right and we're looking that data up in the away team cell range. So we freeze these cells, and again it's row 2, and we're gonna, I've gone too far there. I'm gonna freeze that one and false. And that has now given us the percentage likelihood of the game finishing 1-0. You can drag that down, and that gives you the percentage likelihood for each team. No, it doesn't, because I've put an error in there. Let me just see what. Sorry. I've deliberate mistake. Didn't freeze the row there for the away team. That's why we got an error. So it's quite easy to spot when you do make a mistake. We can pull that down, and that looks correct. So huge, great odds or percentage chance on the Fleetwood-Gillingham game being 1-0 when you compare it to the one we've just looked at, which is actually the smallest likelihood of a game being 1-0, which is the Wimbledon-Burton game. And we can drag this all the way across now to populate for all of our score lines now that we've frozen those header and column data points. And I'm just going to pop a divider in here. So we now have the percentage likelihood outcome for each score line for all games. Okay, so you can see here that that totals 98.42%. So what that's saying is there's about a 1.5% chance that the scoreline is anything other than the ones we've covered here. So basically 6-0 or any combination of one of the teams scoring 6 goals. Okay, so it's quite small and insignificant really in terms of the probability likelihood. So we have all the scorelines there, and now the next stage is to work out the true odds, which is where we added these cells earlier on, and I'm going to show you how you do that now. So to get the true odds, we need to work out the percentage chance, and we're going to put in here home win, draw, away win, and all we do is a simple sum of the scores which favour a home win. So we've already laid these out, so from 1-0 all the way to 5-4, that will give us a sum of all of those combinations of scoreline. And then we do the same for the draw scores, which is the 0-0 through to the 5-all. And then we do the same for the away win, which is the sum of all the away wins in there. Okay, and again, you'll see that that totals the 98.42. Drag that down, and that gives us the percentage likelihood for each one of those teams winning the game. And then to convert that to odds is quite simple. So what we do here, do a 1 divided by the home win, help if I put the equals in front, 1 divided by the home win. And that's saying the true odds of a Wimbledon victory tonight, or last night, is 3.64. And I'm just going to format that to make sure it's in the same 2 decimal format. And then we can paste across or drag across the formula, and that says Burton's odds are 2.06. And again, I'm just going to make sure that those are all in the same format. Here we go, and then we can drag them down. So now what we've done is created the true odds, or the Poisson probability odds of an outcome. So what it doesn't factor in is things like the weather, suspensions, injuries, transfers, managerial changes, all of those outside influences. This is purely data driven, so you do need to consider any of those factors if you're going to be using this to test the system, to place bets, for instance. It is purely data driven, and this video is just an example of how you can use our output to get to this stage. Okay, Now the final stage is going to be looking at how we use this data to identify value or potential value. So one way you can do it is to say, well, if the actual odds being offered are higher than the predicted odds, that's a value bet. It is. You may want to add another layer to that. For instance, you may want to say, well, only if the home team's predicted chance is more than 50%, say. So we can quickly identify that using conditional formatting within Excel. And I'm going to build a rule that will show you how to do that. So we're going to use a formula to highlight where a home team has a 50% chance of winning and the actual odds being offered are higher than our predicted odds. So it's deeming it's a value bet. So we enter AND because we're going to enter a couple of different rules here. And we're going to say AND where the home odds, which are CU2, and we're going to unfreeze those. In this instance, we don't need those frozen. Where CU2 is greater than 0.5, because that is the percentage, and where AP2, which is the cell we're on, is less than AM2, which are the true odds. So that's our rule. So we're saying where CU2, which is the percentage chance of the home team winning, is greater than 50%, and where the predicted odds are less than the actual odds. And what we want to say is where that is a true indication match, let's highlight those yellow. And you can see that that one isn't. We can just go in and adapt that and scroll it all the way down. So we want to apply it to each row of games, and we've only got the 12 there. And click apply, and you can see that it's picked out 2 games for us already that it identifies as a value home win using that criteria that I've just drawn up. And let's do the same for the away team. Let's build a new rule where the away team's odds percentage chance, which is CW2, so we're going to put and CW2 is greater than 0.5, separated with a comma, and where AR2 is less than the away odds being offered, which is AO2. And then we're going to add the formatting again, click OK, and we're just going to drag that down to cover all of those for away wins. So you can see there it's identified potentially 4 value away wins within the games that were played last night, and so we're simulating this data before the games are played. And the final one is just to do a draw check. So we could create a new rule where we could put a couple of rules in. So we could say equals and, so CU2 is less than 0.5 and CW2 is less than 0.5. So we want to say both home and away team have less than 50% chance of winning according to the Poisson distribution. And where AQ2, which is the cell reference you see in the top left, AQ2, which is the predicted draw odds, are less than the actual draw odds, which are AN2. And again, we're going to pop some color formatting on that as well. Let's put the green. Okay, and then we can drag that down or apply that to a greater range of the cells. Click apply, and there's actually no games, so there's no identified draw games tonight. So we've got 5 games out of the 12 where there's deemed potential value using the criteria that we've identified. So let's have a look, see how they got on. The beauty of doing this way is we can obviously fast forward time and get the result because we know that the result of each game. So let's drop the result into those 2 cells there. So you can see that Bristol Rovers Accrington was predicted deemed a value away win, which yeah, anything but there. So 4-1 home win. The caveat being that Bristol Rovers have just changed their manager. So they've got Joey Barton in charge, new manager. As I said a few moments ago, those are the sort of factors that you can't capture within data. You do still need that human input, if you like. What's the weather doing? What are the injuries, suspensions? Are players being rested? Has there been a new signing? You've also got to factor in things like, if you're looking across seasons, the crowd effect. So this season, the majority of games have been played with no crowds. So it's seen a greater percentage of away wins. That's now being rectified and by the bookies, and also going to be represented with the data we're looking at, because we're looking at it consistently across this season. But if you're looking at it across a couple of seasons back, then it would have been painting a different picture. So that one we put down as a loss. Crewe versus Doncaster, home win predicted, and we've got a 1-0. So we can turn that one green to indicate a correct identified bet. Ipswich Lincoln, that was a 1-1 draw and predicted to be a value away win. Again, Ipswich have just changed their manager, Paul Cook, now in charge of Ipswich. It's a potential factor. You know, teams do historically raise their game when there's a new manager. There's a different formation, might have his own players in, depending on when the transfer window is. So that would be something that you would potentially bear in mind while taking that a bet on in those instances. You would expect that sort of to be represented within the actual odds that the bookmakers are offering, the new manager factor. But again, it's cause for concern. The next one, Peterborough Hull, was deemed a value home win. Peterborough, again, that's a pretty convincing away win. But within that game, Peterborough were 1-0 up and had a man sent off. That's not something you can account for before the game, but it's obviously a factor that's played into the overall outcome of that match. So that would be a loss. So we've got 3 losses and a win so far. The next game, Portsmouth-Sunderland, an away win was the potential value bet there. And you can see that we've got an away win, 0-2, and we'll turn that one green as well. And the same as the one below, so Rochdale-Shrewsbury was deemed an away win as a value indicated bet, and that was the actual outcome of the game. So you can see from these 6 games, we've got 1, 2, 3 red, 1, 2, 3 green. Okay, so on paper that looks like we've got a 50-50 split, but then if you factor in the odds, so these are the average odds as well from all bookmakers, so you be able to quite easily find better odds depending how much shopping around you did, or if you went on the exchanges. But you can see that Crewe were above evens to beat Doncaster. So where you'd lose 1 point, say on Bristol Rovers, you would gain 0.17 overall on the Crewe game. So you'd be 0.17 up there. You'd lose two more further points on the Ipswich and Peterborough game. But again, you would gain 0.89 and 0.24 from the Rochdale and Shrewsbury games, offsetting the loss that you would make on these 3 games. So what we can do, if you wanted to calculate that, we can pop these odds of the winning odds into a separate cell here. And what we want to do is say that -1, because we don't want to include our stake. That's the profit you would make from those 3 winning bets, and we can sum that. And then what you'd say is that you'd have 3 losing bets. So that minus the 3 that you'd stake would still see you with a 1.3 point profit. Very small sample size. This is not intended as a holy grail, will win every time system. This is a very small sample size I've picked. The video is intended to show you how you can use our data output directly and then start manipulating using pivot tables, formulas, and the Poisson distribution to identify potential value bets in football.